Welcome to the Breathing Edge podcast. Today we have another very special guest on our Energized Leader series. This one in particular, another personal favorite of mine, who I would not be where I am today in business if it were not single-handedly for this man, committed to us and our business and what we're doing and staying the track. And as he likes to say, just keep kicking the can. So Dr. David Dugan, thank you for joining us today on our podcast.
Hey, great. Thanks for being here. Pleasure to have you. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to work with other amazing, committed people.
Thank you. All right. So a little quick five I'm going to give on you, David, and I'd love for you to fill in some holes. So David was in the military, and I probably won't even do you justice on your story. But this is kind of like from my perspective. So he was in the military, 5 university degrees later. He had his own dental practice, and he was flying in the helicopters to the Middle East and supporting people over there. Is that right? You weren't flying them personally.
Little bits and pieces. That's all good. I get it.
Yeah.
Maybe let's let David.
Yeah. So anyway, you can fill in the holes there. One moment. So anyway, you got out of the military and you had this this drive and passion to support entrepreneurs, and so you started what is known today as Abundance Global. Your one of the things that I love about your mission and vision for the people that you support is intergenerational wealth. And I love how not only is it about, the money in business, but it's about optimizing your business for time, money, and joy. And those are the things that I haven't met any sort of like business mentors that are making sure that you're not only kicking ass in business, but kicking ass in personal life. So I would love for you to just fill in those gaps. Thank you. on just a quick 5 on your story, where you got, what it's taken you to get to where you are today.
Okay, cool. So you've hit the nail on the head on the pieces there. I was a commander in the Australian Navy. Was there for 18 years. I was a dentist, and I racked up, he said, 5 university qualifications, of which 3 were clinical and 2 were in the business space. On one of those missions, when the tsunami hit back in 2004, 2005, I was involved in that mission. And in that mission, there was we'd finished the mission, the ship was coming home. I flew off the ship about 2 days earlier to do a leadership course. And as it turned out, there was another earthquake while I was in transit. Ship turned around and went back. And what happened was the helicopters that had all the medical teams, which I was part of, 2 of these helicopters, they flew off to the village to get to help out. The helicopter that was my helicopter that I'd been flying on for the last 3 months, very tragically, had a malfunction as it was taking off. And the end result of that is the helicopter crashed and 9 of the people had died. I would have been on that helicopter had I not gone off to do this leadership course. And so that was a real wake-up call. And that was a place for me to go, okay, I really love what I do. All I ever wanted to do since I was a kid was be a dentist, and being in the military and the Navy was a childhood dream, and I was living the dream. But I got a real good sense that there had to be more, and that there was more to life, and it was very much around how do I make a bigger impact. And the impact I was making at that time was good. It wasn't remarkable. And what drives me and what gets me out of bed are 2 big things. One is how, and they're related. How can I be the best that I can possibly be? And that leads me to the second one, which is one of my biggest fears, or one of the big that drives me, is to meet the person that I could have been in 10 years or 20 years from now. And kind of go, I could have, but I didn't because I was a lazy ass, or I didn't have the bravery or the courage to do something uncomfortable. And so for me, it's just always being uncomfortable with that uncomfortable, and always pushing that boundary to make sure that I'm fulfilling my destiny. And that really came from, and even though I was always on that journey, it was really that instant made me have a sliding doors moment and go, I've been given a second chance. And for my shipmates who died on that crash, I feel like I owe it to them to do the best that I can. Like, I survived, 9 of them didn't, and they were super duper talented surgeons and, highly specialised, not just highly specialised, but just great people. And so as much as anything else, I owe it to them. That was the original driver, and now it's moved into, well, who am I going to work with? Who are the people that make the biggest difference on the planet? We know that statistically that business owners, small and medium-sized business owners and entrepreneurs globally employ the most people on the planet. They take the biggest risks, and they're the real innovators. I've got 3 little kids, and I'm absolutely committed to make the planet an even better place in the future than it is now. And not saying it's bad now, but we can make it better. And entrepreneurs are the people who do that. I want to put power to the people. The Abundance Global is around how to create intergenerational wealth. There's a lot of stress and a lot of politics in politics. Politicians will do what they are going to do, and that's just part of the journey. I'll leave that conversation for another time. What I know is when we put the power in entrepreneurs, we know that good stuff happens. And so that really came from the helicopter crash, and then me following my destiny to make sure that I do the best that I can possibly, and don't leave any stone unturned. So that's kind of like the short and shiny of where we are. I suppose the only thing is the linkage of what we do now is because my last job in the Navy was as an executive coach teaching leadership. And I always had a business. I've always had a side hustle business since I've been 13. And it just came to the point I was like, oh, well, this is pretty obvious. I love coaching, I love leadership, and I love business. Why don't I put the two together? And we are today where we are now because of that incident and the merging of those two things.
That's sensational.
Where do you see self-leadership in the entrepreneurial space and in the businesses that you work with, David? Because I mean, you and I have worked together now, and for those that are listening, David's our mentor in business as well, and I'm super choosy about who I about who I associate with. It's just that's something that I'm. It's not it just started out as a judgment thing, but I'm getting grace around that, and what the reason I say that is because you're just highly skilled at this. And we've had many discussions, and this discussion about self-leadership comes up. So where do you see that people kind of trip up or fall down in the business space?
Good question.
Well, I'd say business. I'd say in life. Whether you're a parent at home, whether you're a school teacher, whether you're an employee in a workplace in the city, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a CEO. I think the principles apply, and that is, it's impossible to lead anyone else, be it your children, if you have, be it friends that you hang around with, be it teammates you work with, be it the company that you own, or the C-suite organisation that you lead. I just don't see it's possible for anyone to do that, to lead others without leading themselves first. And yes, by being an example is a really important part of that. I also think that self-leadership is so critically important, because how can we lead someone if we don't know how to lead ourselves? And I have a discipline that goes behind that. I think, and it's obviously why you do what you do, and why I'm attracted to that as well, is because a lot of that discipline, I think, is not business related, it's personal related. It's looking at how you hold yourself. It's how I'd probably say the physical state that you put yourself in. When you walk into a room, or you're in a room, and then someone just walks in, and they're just like, what's on with them? As in a positive, people just gravitate towards them. They're attractive in their nature without necessarily being outwardly, gregarious always. It's like there's just something about them that there's a presence. And for me, that's about state. And state management and self-leadership are all very much, different side of the same coin. If you turn up with a shitty state, you're going to make shitty decisions. Whether you're a mum, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a CEO, whether you're an executive, shitty states leads to shitty outcomes. It will, let's say, I don't know if this is a PR or PG thing, so I'm not changing my language, but
it's all right. On our podcast.
Is a shitty state, you ask shitty questions, and shitty questions get shitty answers or shitty solutions. So having a state where you're putting yourself in a great state, for me, is all about self-leadership. And the better you can lead yourself, the better you can lead others, and regardless of who they are. We know that humans are people that need people. Even if people don't like hanging on lots of people, they still need people in their lives. And so how do we get the best out of ourselves and out of others? That's self-leadership.
And what have you seen, because you've worked with a lot of...
How many, David? Tell us how many you've worked with.
Well, businesses or people?
Yeah.
Well, businesses, it's about 1,700. So it's about it's a bit over about 1,700. I think we're about 25 or 6 or 7 or 8, somewhere around that category.
Yeah. And usually there's between 1 and 3 people within each of those organizations that you work with. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so
that's 17. That's not in big, large, 300 people groups. I mean, that's in like conversations like this, or in small, intimate groups of up to 10, 15 people. So that's 17 in the thousands in big groups, but that's in one-on-one or individual.
Yeah. Okay, great. So you've got a lot of background and you've spoken to a lot of people. You've seen a lot of the same mistakes made over and over and over and over. And
which takes a great amount of patience and grace to sit in that as well. Like I don't think I could do what you do.
Well, David is a great star supporter. And so the question is what are those mistakes that you see people make the most that is kind of like at the detriment or the downfall of the growth of business?
Maybe top 2 or top 3 sort of thing.
Okay, cool. I'll answer that in not maybe a way that you wouldn't expect, because the simple thing that most people would say is, well, you need to have a great marketing plan. You need to know how to do sales. You need to have a product that people want. Product development, learn how to market, learn how to sell it. Okay, yes, all that is very relevant and very, very true, and a price point that is profitable. That's not the real answer, I don't believe, though. The real answer, if we go upstream to the lead domino that goes before that, where I think people trip up, is actually probably 2 or 3 steps before that. Number 1 is they don't really know what they want. So they just sort of start out and they go, I want to make money. Well, how much money? And why do we want to make that amount of money? This is one of the things that the two of you know is I talk about your ideal lifestyle number. Like, how much money do you need? And I've done this now with thousands, like way more than 1,700. I think it's like 6,000 or 7,000 people. I'm working out how much money do you really, really need to live a remarkable life. You may not have a jet or a chauffeur waiting outside. It's the level just below that. In the Western world, in that number, if I ask that number, what number do you think most people would say? They need to have this amount of income coming in to live an amazing lifestyle. What number do you reckon that would be?
$1 million.
Say a couple 100,000, depending on the
No. It is almost unanimously $1 million.
It's the universal number. Like, it's, everyone thinks they have to make $1 million.
So here's the truth. When sitting down granularly and going through, okay, how many holidays do I want? What sort of house do I live in? How much do I want to eat, and how many times do I want to go out? What sort of clothes do I want to wear? Kids' education, like adding all those up and really adding them all up. Having done this now with thousands of people, the number is between 180 and 380,000. So let's round it up. For between $200,000 and $400,000 will give people an amazing lifestyle. Amazing lifestyle. Now, yes, if you go, I want to invest in lots of properties and things like that, you need to add that on there. But even allowing for investing, like consistently putting in there, putting something in that category between 2 and 400,000 lives a remarkable life. So the first point to answer your question, like what are some mistakes, is they don't really clearly do that. And what ends up happening is they end up drifting. They end up kind of going along and thinking they're chasing money and realizing they're probably much closer than they thought. Or the other thing that happens is when they exceed the amount that that is that ideal lifestyle number, what ends up happening is they start to self-sabotage. They start to kind of do dumb stuff and they kind of don't know why, because they've actually gone over what they in their internal clock says is their number that they're permissible to make. And it's like, how much money do you want to give yourself permission to really make? And it's an interesting point. So if we go upstream to what the big things are, you said it earlier, Angie, is that I find that there are 3 things that we need to get clarity around to start off the journey. And these are like, the business is a vehicle. And just because we're talking about business owners, if you are a executive, a C-suite in a company, you are in business. You just happen to have one client. That's called your employer. So it's the same thing. When I say that, it's the same deal here. Is these 3 categories, and there are others, although this is a really good measure to get the vast bulk of it, is how much cash do you need to live? What does this vehicle need to give you? This asset called a job or a business, what does it need to give you? Second thing is looking at time. Time is the most limited resource, and yet at the same time, it's the one that's most equal amongst all men and women. It's the only thing everyone has exactly the same amount of. It's the fairest resource. It's where we put that time. And this is the important point. Looking at genius time, like what is the thing that you were put on the planet to do? What's the thing that you were gifted at? And you were just saying earlier, you know, how do I do what I do now? And it's because I know that I was born to do this. This is my exit strategy. I left a very cushy, amazing career with good pay and great lifestyle to do what I do now. If I had over $100 million, what would I do? I'll be doing exactly this. And that's understanding, where do I want to put my time? Time in doing the activities, time out to renew, to also think critically, and then for business owners, time out of the business or time to also strategically think about it. So first category is really knowing clarity of how much money we want to make, how much money we want to give. So once you get above your ideal lifestyle, it's not about you anymore. It's about who you want to help. So that should drive people from their 2 to 400,000 to go, you know what, I need to make $2 to $4 million of profit so I can give away and support a lot of other people. Then time is then thinking about, well, how many hours a week do I want to work? How many weeks of leave do I want to have in the year? And then, so that's really looking at time. And then when I'm working, what's the thing, what brings me joy? And the third thing is impact. So what's the thing that I personally want to master in? Like, what's the getting clarity around where you want to be? Now, I had that incident happen for me. And at the same time, I looked at people who were 10 years further down the track than me, and I loved what I did. I loved being a commander. I loved being a dentist. But I looked at people who were 10 years down the track and went, you know what, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be where they are in 10 years. And that's why I made a shift to going, well, what really do I want to learn in? And I love leadership and I love business. Put the two together, and that's why we get business coaching and mentoring. It's also looking at how you build the team around that. Like, what's the impact you want to make on your economic community? And then bigger picture around impact is, what's the impact that I want to make, or this for anyone that we want to make as far as building a legacy. You know, I've got 3 little kids. When I have grandkids, and they're sitting on my lap and they go, you know, Granddad, what is it that, you know, you did on your life? You can look back very proudly and go, you know what, this is the impact that I made. We often call it like the processional effect. Like, we help these families, and for me, the reason I do what I do here is because I know when you help business owners, you help them and their families, you help the people they employ, you help them. You know, there's a huge number of people that get divorced, but it's a lot higher in business owners. The stress of cash. The stress of cash is huge. You know, what can we do to reduce that or eliminate that, and have people, you know, really happy with their lives? So getting clarity around that, around the money, around the time, and the impact is super important. So that's probably the biggest thing I think that people miss. And then the second thing is actually the work that you guys do, and that is the way people show up in their state will dictate the results they get in their marketing, in their sales, in their delivery, and all those other things. Is the way that their mindset works is the thing that throws most people off, especially in business, because you go through a roller coaster ride, and there's a roller coaster ride, and when we make poor decisions, especially when the businesses pick up speed, when they're in launch mode, you've got the crocodile brain that fires off because we don't have enough cash. But as you hit over the 7-figure mark, what ends up happening is if you make a poor decision, whereas in the early days it might cost you, $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000, maybe 10 grand, but when you're at 7 figures or 8 figures and you make a poor decision, that decision has a big impact. It's 100,000 or 200,000. You make a couple of those poor decisions in a row, you end up and you're out of business. And so the pace of things picks up even more. So all those other things I talked about downstream, or marketing, sales, product development, team, finance, all that stuff is relevant. 2 things upstream: real clarity around what you need, what you want to get out of it, what's the difference you want to make, and secondly, how you show up in your personal state, which is that personal energy. It's all around that self-leadership. And so whenever I know I'm going through a full-on intent, when the business is making a big shift, we've made quite a few. We've had 31 consecutive record quarters in a row. So 31 quarters, and the last quarter was a significant shift. Whenever I know what our growth plan is, I invest on those first 2 things first. I double down on my personal leadership. You usually see I'll increase the amount of reading or increase the amount of coursework I do. It's not coursework, as going to things around mindset. So how do I do to improve my mindset and also my physical health? So I'll work harder on my body and work harder on my mindset. And harder is not the right word. I put a heap of discipline behind it and rigor behind that. And I know Shane and Angie, we've talked about this before, but the language that I use around that is, rather than discipline, because that's the word I use, is the true emotion that comes behind it is not discipline, it's devotion. So what I go is I devote myself to excelling in my personal energy and personal mindset. And then all the rest of it then flows. I know that's a long answer to your question, but without explaining those, all the rest won't make sense.
Now, here's an interesting thing that's just come up in what you were saying. So you've spent over $1 million on your own self-development education, business education, this sort of thing.
I do 6 figures every year, easily. Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. Here's what surprises me is that it's like people think that, or should I say, you would think that you take all of these courses and do all the self-development, eventually you kind of like get there, and then you have all the tools that you need, and then you just put them in place when you need to. And it's so fascinating to hear you, somebody who's spent a lot of time and over 6 figures a year in self-development and education, and yet you still keep reinvesting year after year after year in yourself.
Yeah, you don't want to be in the guru syndrome where you think you know it all. You think that is one of the biggest traps. And I think that just to wrap up what you were saying, because we've sat through this with you, David, we've sat through that whole process with you, and I can tell you that, one, for me personally, I had no idea how much money I needed to make to lead the lifestyle that I wanted. And being on that journey and actually knowing that number, and I guess, seeing that for most people, it would be less than what they think they have to aspire to, which automatically takes some pressure off, right? And number 2, having the focus, and you and I have worked on this, Angie and I work on this all the time, having the focus on your own personal energy somehow transforms the way that you do look at what makes you happy. And you begin to not chase that massive amount of money and start to understand that, oh, hey, I actually don't need that much. And my happiness doesn't come from from that. Your happiness can, of course, come from making the money, because you should have joy in what you do. But I think that it's super important, and I know that I've taken a lot away from working with you around the idea of that time, money, joy, and impact, because they've never been things that I've ever put the microscope on to have a look at. And I 100% agree. It doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or you're an intrapreneur. We'll get to that, because I want to ask you about those people as well that are inside the company. It doesn't matter anywhere in any of those sorts of things. I think that if you start to look at these things in your life, regardless of where you are at, because you've got, I mean, there's guys in your team that are young, that are in their like early 20s.
Yeah.
You know, that you're teaching these sorts of things, and you can see the impact it has on them as well.
Yeah, indeed. So what was your question?
I was just So I was making the statement about how you still continually to reinvest in yourself and continue to grow.
Cool. So one thing is, I don't ever want to be a guru or anything in that place. So from an identity perspective, that's not it. The way I see myself is as a leading learner, that I'm on this journey as like, this is stuff I'm exploring and learning, and I want to share that with as many people as I can, so they can also get benefit. I feel like that in many ways, for me, I'm a scout, and where I have the opportunity, I've got the resources, and also the mindset, so that it meets my nature to do that, to be a leading learner, to be a scout, to then bring that and then spread the good stuff. Because there's a lot of stuff out there is not relevant or not that important, or maybe not that good.
Noise. It's
noise, exactly. So it's like, how do I simplify that and bring the best to the communities that we evolve in? Now, when I started, just a full transparency out of this, I did all the stuff. Like, I was doing most of that stuff was just a waste of time and money. You know, all the get rich quick, you know, CFD trading, you know, the online internet businesses that you can make money selling ebooks and make $1 billion. Whatever the list is that anyone's got, I'd be very, very surprised that I haven't given it a go. So there's a lot of stuff of just going out there and researching until I really worked out, okay, what's truly been my flow, and what is my true nature, and to look at a model that's going to work for my nature, which is why we do what we do right now. So that's just for full transparency. There's a lot of wasted money on some of those early years. So I invest a lot. The difference though is I'm more targeted now, more niche now. So I will, book a month is usually the rhythm. Yes, I could do more, and on audible books I listen to more. But what I do is I do less variety, but go deeper. So I go deeper into a space, and I'll invest in it. As a classic example, I'm a very big fan of building an organisation or a company where your team are effectively part of that company, really, and from a shareholder perspective almost, or a invested interest, they get wins out of that as well. So the better the business does, they do. I don't want to have anyone who's an employee. I want everyone to be an entrepreneur. They want to be entrepreneurial. So we use principles from a book called The Great Game of Business. Read it 10 times within 6 weeks. Instead of going to get the next book, I went over and over to see how we can implement it. Then I employed someone, contracted someone to come in and contract to us to help us implement that, and to help my mindset around shifting it, basically coach me on how to do that. And so that's where I would go deeper on that, so we get execution on it rather than just doing lots and lots of things. Most people, as I was in the early days, let's say how I was a sprinkler, spreading my money, energy, time across everywhere, and just, you know, sprinkling it everywhere, to then going from a sprinkler to a fire hose. And that understanding that business owner joy, the wealth, time, the impact, helps to narrow that down. So that's probably a big thing around that, is that I invest in that all the time. The other thing is everyone, doesn't matter who you are, has blind spots. And having someone shine the light on those blind spots, I think, is critically important. I've got a board of directors that watches my game. I have a coach. I have a mentor, because I know, even though I know a lot about business, I can't see myself in the picture if I'm in it. You know, you can't read the ingredients of the jar if you're inside the jar. So it's that kind of principle of making sure you keep on your game. The most elite athlete in the world, let's say, you know, look at tennis. We've had an amazing Australian tennis star just recently, and, you know, does she do it on her own? No, it's like she has someone checking her game. The most elite have someone checking in on their game, and that's what we do as well. So we invest in that to make sure that we're progressing on that. So we'll keep on investing on those areas.
Brilliant. Now, the other thing or did you want to talk about something? Because I have another question. Okay, good. So I remember you making a statement one time that I thought was...
Oops, I didn't, did I?
Oh, don't worry, it's above board. So you made the statement that you noticed the more entrepreneurs or more business owners that took holidays, the better their business did.
That's correct. Every month we get a profit and loss and balance sheet from our clients and the people we're mentoring and coaching. And what we get to see really, really what happens. There are a lot of people that are in our space doing what we do in mentoring and coaching and what I see is what they lack, that we get an amazing amount of insight, is that we can truly see what happens behind the scenes of what truly makes a difference in the business. Some people, you go, oh my God, they must be, you know, especially if they've got a fantastic social media and fantastic online presence. In my observation, only about 10% of those people really have the business that backs it up. It's usually the quiet achiever that's just knocking away the boring scaffolding company, the boring bookkeeping business that is just smashing it out of the park. So because we've got the privilege of seeing what really moves the needle, we notice that as people's businesses got better and we encourage them to take a bit of time out, et cetera, a part of just keeping a healthy mind, is that we saw there was a tipping point in the business, that when a business owner took this certain amount of leave or renewal time, that when they did that, the performance of the business accelerated significantly. Under that, it kind of would seem to be this roller coaster ride of being up and down. Instead of being like an up and down going sideways, when you get this certain amount of leave, it actually does that same wave, but it's actually a much faster growth going upwards. So it was a cause and effect, and it was really just us looking at the numbers and going, oh, that's interesting, and that's the specific number. And it's like when you do that's the tipping point for you to be able to really start to scale the business.
Okay, cool. Now, that also seemed to be quite linked to the personal energy stuff and to the self-leadership, because you are already involved. I mean, we met at a breathing event, you know, so you had already been kind of in that space. And I wanted to ask you about your experience with that, because you've had years and years and years of working on your own personal energy, starting from, you know, I would say Tony Robbins days, but maybe, I don't know, maybe before that. Tell me a little bit about your journey, just in personal energy and building up your ability to manage yourself and self-lead yourself. And then a little bit about where your work today is with us and keeping a regular rhythm.
Sure. So interesting. Rhythm is I'll pick up on that actually. That's a great word that I think most people could do a lot better in thinking around it. Now, I was privileged. It was either because of my nature, or just the fact I was in the industry. Because I had been, I trained as a pentathlete. So I did a lot of training, physical training, meant that I needed to have a training plan, especially with 5 sports. So I had to have a training plan. I was also a dentist. So when you have a dentist, you've got to see patients, obviously. You've got to structure your day or your diary to do certain things at a certain time. So whether I was just naturally aligned to do that, those sorts of things, or they taught me that, I don't know. But what I do know is I learned very early in the piece, just after university, to structure my days and my weeks in a certain way to build rhythm. So I think that's just really important. That's probably a little bit of foundational stuff, and to this very day, that's super important. Moving into the personal energy and the breathing part of that. Yes, I'm a trainer for Tony Robbins and done some great work with him. And in the physical training that I've done, as in from a pentathlete perspective, the learning from that was you have to learn to breathe. And one of the sports in pentathlon is pistol shooting with an air pistol. And I learned there for the first time around the breath, because you have to shoot in between heartbeats and in between your breath to have the stillest arm. So pistol shooting is very, hand moves around a lot. So I learned to control my breathing in that space, but it was a hit and miss. Working with Tony, so starting in 1999, so if you how many years, I dedicated myself every day. Sorry, that's not true. 6 out of 7 days a week. This was 6 days out of 7 days a week. I do a breathing ritual of some sort, and I have been doing that since 1999. And so I'm just doing a breathing ritual, Qigong breathing. I come from a martial arts family, so we just do Qigong stuff, and that was all good. Then I go to an Ayurvedic clinic, so Indian medical philosophy, and one of the practitioners there said this to me. She said, the pathway to the soul is through the breath. And I went, what's this all about? The pathway to the soul. I went, that to me is a worthy thing to devote myself to learn about. And so I went on discovery, and I started to go, I need to do more on this area. And I started to learn and just research what's going on with this breathing stuff. I met you guys at a breathing event. I read your book, which, by the way, is absolutely, as far as personal energy goes, is the best book I've read on that. It's such a simple term. And I read the book and I was blown away by the information, how practical, how simple, and how executional it was. And I put that into place. It is as simple as that, the keys that you went through in the book. And since then, now obviously working with you, so this is part of me being a learning leader, is, I don't know how to do all this stuff. I want to go to someone who's a world leader in this to train me on how to do it. I don't want to learn the average way. I want to learn the way the best of the best do it, and learn from the best. And that's why I get breathing from the two of you and your philosophy around that. And I'm going to continue that journey. And that's a ritual. Literally this morning, I did a solid 18 minutes this morning of getting in there and putting me into the right state, so I can make better, so I can ask better questions and make better solutions or better decisions that come from that. So that's really been the graduation part of it. It was early just doing it because it seemed like it was a good thing, and I got a little bit of a benefit from it. And then as I've gone forward and done this really deep dive into this pathway to the soul, which, by the way, in my experience is absolutely 100% true. I've just found that the last probably 2.5 years of really doing deep dive in this made a massive difference to my own personal energy, and also the team and the family around it as well.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that journey. And would you say that, so it sounds to me that, even though you've done some breathing stuff before, that this is just kind of taking your knowledge and experience of yourself deeper?
Well, I've been a blessing giver. I've done, chanting, all this kind of discovery. There's almost, I'm sure there's something I haven't done, but there's not much. And, you can spend, as I've done, 4 days, 5 days, getting to a place of getting into a peak state. And after my first proper breathing experience, I went there within about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Every time I do the breathing, I get to go to that same state that took me 4 or 5 days to get to. I'm a businessman. I can get a much better return from a smaller effort. I am there in a flash. So it's a good, and I am being biased, and obviously this is what your business is about, and clearly we're on a podcast talking about it, and it is true. It is absolutely the fastest, quickest way to get your brain into the right place and your body into sync and into flow, rather than being in the drama of the chaos that's going around. It just puts you to that eye of the storm. So you can kind of like be more in that genius time, be more you, rather than the person you're trying to pretend to be because other people are looking at you, or whatever you feel like you need to prove. You can just be the best you that you could possibly be. And that brings full circle around to why I do what I do, is to be the best me that I can possibly be. And the breathing helps me to stay on track, get on track, and stay on track with that.
Now, of all the things that you've tried, I see you as somebody who's tried a lot of different things. Obviously, you said that. So of all the things that you have tried, what are the sort of like 3 key things that you continuously do that you have not dropped the ball? And you said before, breathing is something that's important that you've done. But what are some of those other things that you do that just keep you on point, and whether it's physical, mental, or something else?
I find, yes, there's lots of things, but as far as if I have to get the engine moving or I need to up the ante, the first place I go is to physiology, is to my physical body first. I move the physiology first, and the rest then goes from that. And once I've got that momentum, it stays. Like I keep doing that. So probably the overarching principle is physiology first. So within physiology, physical body, I will, and depending on the season of the year, I'll alter it a little bit. I'll change it up a little bit. In essence, though, it comes down to there's just a few things that I'll do that I might do a few different types of things within those categories. So one of those categories is breathing. Whether it's on the mini tramp, just doing a little bit of qigong breathing, whether it's going and doing a deep dive session and getting in doing full triangle, circle, or square breathing. Whatever it is, there's some sort of breathing. There'll be and it'll be a few minutes a day. So number one, going and doing that. Why that? Because if you think about my background, I've got 3 tertiary qualifications in science in health. If you think of all the things that give us nutrition, you've got food. How long can you live without food? Well, depending on who you are, 3 weeks or so, or weeks anyway. How long can you live without water? A lot less than that, days of some sort. How long can you live without oxygen? Minutes. Yeah, it's minutes. So you're kind of like just looking at that logically, there's something to that says that the body needs oxygen and it needs it regularly and consistently. And I know that that's the first place I go to get the brain moving and to get oxygen there. That's the first thing. It's something in breathing. Second thing is something in movement. So the movement for me is a movement. It might be just on a little mini tramp, the 5 Tibetan rites. So if anyone wants to Google those, they're probably the key movements. I learned from a family coming from martial arts, Qigong, so just a little bit of rotating, moving in all the different planes. So there'll be some sort of movement. Worst case scenario, walking, with that, as you guys say, with the swagger is good. When I say worst case scenario, I like things that are a little more active. So walking is the one I do when I don't do anything else. Or, some sort of PT, like getting in there and, like some sort of movement is a big part of that. I personally find that doing at least once a week something that is going to stretch my physical body from a muscle building perspective helps. So just something that's like resistance training or something that pushes my body that is uncomfortable. So getting uncomfortable with the comfortableness is key. So movement of some sort, moving around it is the second one. And the third one, so there's really 4 actually. The third one is making sure that I can get as much sunlight. And that really has been more of a last 3 years I've been doing that, like morning sun particularly, and then afternoon sun. seeing that down the afternoon, I must admit that is not always easy while I'm working, but if it's in winter, summer is a lot easier. Get a little bit of the sun. That's probably the one that is more of the last couple of years, 2 to 3 years, I put effort into that one. So first one is breathing, second one is movement, third one is looking at the sun. And the other one there is really just making sure that I'm putting the right nutrition into place. And the first place of nutrition, generally speaking for me, is just having some good amount of hydration and water of some sort. And I know that the two of you do a lot of discussions around water and types of water. I find getting hydrated is key. And if you can do some grounding as well, that's great. So, getting on some grass. Like this morning, I did my breathing and stretching, and that was all done on the grass. And you can get all that done within 20 minutes. You can do breathing, do a little bit of stretching, watch the sun come up in the morning, walk on the grass. I do a little bit of just stretching on the grass, and that covers all 5. And then have a drink of water with some lemon and salt at the beginning of the day, and bingo, 20 minutes, you're done, and you're ready to rock and roll.
So it's not complex.
No. And it's something that we're probably kind of like already doing already, but just not being mindful about doing it.
True, but I also think that the devotion, like I score that, I check in that. I have a little sheet that I do, and I hit that 6 out of 7 days a week. If I don't do that, then I notice I start to feel sluggish, and I start to feel a bit yuck. And I was like, oh, why is that? Oh, I only did it twice last week. I was on holidays 2 weeks ago, 1.5 weeks ago, and that's when I normally let the rhythm go out and just sort of do whatever, just because that's what you do when you take time out to get out of a routine. The best way I find to keep a routine going is to deliberately insert times when you don't have that routine. And so this week it's like, oh man, I'm right onto that thing. It's like, we're going to get back onto that devotion to that personal self-leadership.
Now, what would be like your biggest advice towards somebody who maybe they're in business? What would you find? I mean, having a look at the mistakes that people make, where they don't measure their time, money, and impact and joy, and then having a look at they're probably already, I would say, from startup phase to like 3 years. What would you say would be like your biggest piece of advice for the people in that sort of category?
Okay. This is
I know it's a broad question, but
it's good. It's like so many different ways to answer that question. Quality question, and depending on where the business is at, the type of business, whether it's a first business or second business, the industry could mean lots of different ways to answer that question. However, big picture, what's the one thing that I would do? What's the one thing, not several, what's the one thing that I would do is going to sound biased, and it is biased because it's only my view of working with over 1,700 business owners, is if you think you can do it on your own, you are kidding yourself. You cannot, and especially in those first few years, especially where money is tight, it's the time that most people don't invest in themselves enough and have someone external, a sounding board to help them stay on track. People, the most limited resource we have is our time, and people waste time. They end up chasing down rabbit warrens that meet their initial needs. So someone who, as an example, someone who is more introvert will go, I need to get all these systems set up. I need to spend all this time to get it all ready. Then I can go out and sell it. Then someone who goes like, I love sales, and they go out there and market, and they just sell, but they haven't got a back end. So what ends up happening, our nature, they're just two examples. Our nature will mean, I'll just stick to doing those things. The truth is, you need to do both and other things as well. Having someone, an external sounding board to go, hang on a second, Mary or Bob, is that really what you should be doing right now? Having that external set of eyes to keep that sounding board, to keep you on track, is super important. You can go to courses, you can go to seminars, you can read books. You've then got to try and adapt that to your business and where you are in your life and what your goals in your business I'm biased because that's what our business does. And without knowing it, from before I started in business, I had a coach. When I was an employee, I had a coach that coached me into starting a business. I have never not had one. I didn't understand, because I was in the coaching industry, I actually didn't realize, hand on heart, that I didn't realize that I thought everyone had a coach. I thought that's what you did. I came from being a pentathlete where I had 5 coaches on the 5 different sports. I just thought that's what everyone did. I didn't know any better as I came out and realized, oh, people don't actually have that. It's like, oh man, like how do you do it without not having an external set of eyes? So that for me is the single most important thing. Unfortunately though, a lot of people go to that source being family or friends. It's not always the case, but it's at least 95% of the case. The advice that family and friends give, or the advice that someone gets from the family and friends, whatever they say is as the advice. What I would like everyone to do, if you are getting that advice, do a 180 degrees shift on that. So if they said you should do this, then my suggestion is you do the exact opposite of that and you'll be far better off in the guidance that you get. So whatever the family and friends say, it's generally speaking, the exact opposite is what someone should do. And the reason for that is because the advice that people give is they don't want to see you uncomfortable. They don't want to see you in pain. They don't want to see, pain's a bit of a hard word, but going through being a business owner or rising up the ranks as a C-suite, it's about getting out of our comfort zone and doing things that are uncomfortable, getting comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Mm.
And that won't come from sitting in a comfort zone. That's just going to keep you stagnating in the same place.
And opinions are easy to give, right? Like, like everyone, I mean, how many people have sat in their lounge chair watching the diving on the Olympics and gone, oh, what a shit entry, right? Like, it's easy for you to critique and to give advice when you're not in the thick of it, and or if you have no experience in business as well, is one of the interesting things.
I think also another struggle is too much information. I mean, I've had problems where there's it's like too many mentors that I'm hearing all kinds of different things from. Oh, do this. Oh, do this. Oh, do this. And then I'm left going like, what the am I supposed to be doing right now? And then I've realized, I've even, heard you say that, just run your own game. It's your game. It's your business. You can take the advice from all these people, but at the end of the day, if you've got your optimizing for time, money, and impact, then you know your vision, you know where you're going, and you can go in that direction. And it doesn't matter, somebody can say this and you go, oh, that sounds like a good idea. I might go down that track. I've been guilty of this. And then go, well, actually, I'm kicking the can down this track. I'm doing it. And as long as I stay consistent and congruent and steady, then it'll happen.
Giddy up, I agree. Mic drop on that.
Brilliant. Well, is there any other questions that you have? I'm just also being...
No, I know you might have mentioned it before, David, but we'll get it again. What's the thing that juices you? Why do you do... Yeah, I know you kind of touched on it. Why do you do... just wrap it up for us. Why do you do what you do?
For a personal perspective, is I want to be the best me that I can possibly be, and to look at when I'm on my deathbed and I can look at my children and grandchildren in the eye and go, you know what? I left it all on the table. Like, there was nothing I left on that field. I didn't come back with any reserves. Like, I went all in, and the impact that had was that I was able to influence millions of other people as well, many of whom I'll never meet, but were part of the processional effect of helping amazing entrepreneurs live their dreams and allow them to lead leaders, and that for me is what gets me out of bed, whether I'm tired, whether something's happened, whether there's a drama going on of some sort, is regardless of what happened, I will always stay true to that, and will stay on that till the day that they bury me in the ground 6 foot under.
Another microphone drop.
Yeah.
Dugan.
Cheers. Right. Here. There we go.
Good.
It invokes some emotion in me, because I know one of the things that you say is have the energy to zig when you zag, and I think that if you've got something, your why is big enough and impactful enough and emotional enough, then you will always find the energy to zig when you zag.
Bingo. Nailed it.
Cool. Well, thank you for your time, David. I know we're on to the next thing here, but thank you for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your expertise, and your many, many years of experience that you condensed down into 1 hour with us. So thank you again for your time.
And we really appreciate your wise counsel in our business. And for anyone out there that's listening that is looking for a mentor that's in business, that's at any of those phases that we spoke about, we'll add David's contact details in the show notes, and you can get in contact with him.
So what is the best email address or not email address? What's your email? What's the best website or what best place for people to go to contact you to learn more?
Sure. Abundance. So www.abundance.global. And then go to the website there. And I'm more than happy, especially if it's someone that's come from this podcast, if they want to reach out and ask, and I'm more than happy to have a 10-minute chat with anyone and to see what I can do to help them. And in 10 minutes, I can usually give 3 very poignant things as their next step. So if someone's listening to this, you're a winner. You're obviously excelling in this area, and more than happy, and they're a business owner, obviously, then more than happy to have a chat with them and do 10 minutes and give them some good oil.
And I highly recommend that too. I mean, you can get a lot of value from 10 minutes with you, at least direction and some clarity.
Might not be what you want to hear, though. So just
what you need, but well, I got that. Yeah, I had that shine.
There's a lot here. All right. Well, we'll put those details in the show notes. And again, David, thank you for taking your time, and we'll see you on the other side.
Beautiful. Thanks, winners. Catch you later.
Catch you later.